Have you ever noticed something about yourself that you were too embarrassed to speak about, but deep down, you knew it was real? Maybe it was a sound your body started making without your permission, or a small but persistent shift in how others treat you. As we get older, certain things happen that no one warned us about. They're subtle, sometimes awkward, and often swept under the rug. But here's the truth: you're not alone. And these experiences, while real and sometimes embarrassing, don't make you less, they make you human. In today's special video, we're pulling back the curtain on 12 real but embarrassing things that happen as seniors get older. We're not doing this to make fun. We're doing it to understand, to normalize, and most importantly, to empower. Because once you recognize these things for what they are, you'll not only feel less shame, you'll also know what to do about them. You'll meet people like Sarah, who once cringed every time her knees popped when she stood up in public. Or Thomas, who avoided family dinners because he feared an urgent trip to the bathroom might ruin the evening. Their stories are our stories, and when we talk about them openly and kindly, we reclaim our dignity. So why should you stick around until the end of this video? Because number 7 will hit closer to home than you think. And because by the end, you'll receive not just information, but a gentle challenge, one that could shift the way you see yourself and the way you age. If you're ready to shed the shame, laugh a little, and feel a lot more connected to others walking this same path, this is for you. And before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. If even one of these signs has ever made you feel uncomfortable, let us know with a simple 1. If not, comment 0. Either way, your voice matters, and your story deserves to be heard. Now, let's begin. Real but embarrassing thing number 1, involuntary noises, grunts, sighs, and unexpected sounds. Sarah had always been a graceful woman. Her movements were elegant, her presence calm, but lately something had changed. Every time she stood up from the couch, a soft grunt escaped her lips. Bending down to pick something up, another noise. Sitting down after a long day, yet another sound. She didn't mean to make them. In fact, she didn't even notice at first. It wasn't until her grandson imitated her little groan with a giggle that she realized her body was speaking on her behalf. These little noises, the sighs, the grunts, the involuntary oofs, are incredibly common as we age. They aren't signs of weakness. They're signs that your body is adjusting to new physical realities. Joints that used to glide easily now need a little more support. Muscles that once held tension quietly now release it out loud. But here's what's important. These sounds don't mean you're broken. They mean you're human, and they're nothing to be ashamed of. Still, if they bother you, there are ways to manage them. Strengthening your core muscles, stretching regularly, and being mindful of your movements can reduce the strain on your body and, by extension, the sounds it makes. Simple exercises like seated leg lifts or supported squats can ease tension in the hips and knees. Yoga and Tai Chi are excellent for improving mobility and reducing the need for those little oofs altogether. But perhaps the most powerful thing you can do is shift your mindset. Instead of feeling self-conscious, smile, laugh, and if someone comments on the sounds you make, just say, "That's the music of a life well lived," because that's the truth. Up next, a more subtle change, one you can't hear, but others might smell before you even realize it. This one might surprise you, but it's far more common than you think. Real but embarrassing thing number 2, odor changes. When you smell different and don't realize it. It started subtly. A friend who once greeted Sarah with a warm hug now kept a bit of distance. Her daughter began cracking windows when she visited, even on chilly days. At first, Sarah didn't notice anything strange. She chalked it up to oversensitivity. Maybe the weather, maybe a draft. But one afternoon, after a long walk, Sarah took off her jacket and caught a faint scent. One she didn't recognize. It wasn't unpleasant, but it wasn't her usual perfume either. It was different. Changes in body odor are one of the least talked about, yet most noticeable shifts that can occur with age. Hormonal fluctuations, medications, slower metabolism, and changes in skin composition all contribute to this invisible but impactful transformation. The result? A scent that feels unfamiliar, sometimes musky, sometimes stale, and often only others notice it. And that's what makes it so uncomfortable. It's one thing to be aware of something and address it. It's another thing entirely to be unaware and feel people treating you differently because of it. The truth is, aging skin produces fewer oils and interacts with sweat in new ways. Combined with changes in hygiene routines or diet, this can create an odor that's distinctively elderly. But here's the good news. This is entirely manageable. And no, it doesn't mean you're unclean. In fact, many seniors with odor changes bathe regularly. The key lies in adjusting your care routine to fit your body's new needs. Start with gentle exfoliation. Dead skin cells can trap odors. A soft brush or mild scrub used once or twice a week can do wonders. Opt for soaps that are pH balanced and designed for mature skin. And don't forget fabrics. Clothes, bed sheets, and even towels can retain odors. Wash them often and choose breathable, natural fibers whenever possible. Hydration also plays a crucial role. Drinking enough water helps your body flush out toxins and can improve how your body smells. Certain foods like garlic, onions, and spicy dishes can intensify odor, so it might be worth noticing patterns and adjusting your diet slightly if needed. Lastly, fresh air and sunshine can naturally cleanse both skin and spirit. A short daily walk, some sun on your face, and even airing out your home can create a sense of renewal inside and out. What Sarah discovered wasn't just a change in scent, it was a call to evolve, a reminder that our bodies change, and that's okay. With small adjustments, she found herself not only feeling fresher, but also more confident. Her hugs returned, her daughter stopped cracking windows, and most importantly, Sarah felt like herself again. Up next, a deeply personal and often private struggle that many seniors face, but few openly admit. One that affects confidence, social comfort, and even emotional well-being. Let's talk about bathroom mishaps, urgency, and those moments you hope no one notices, but that can be more common than you think. Real but embarrassing thing number 3, bathroom mishaps, leaks, urgency, and accidents. Thomas had always been the picture of dignity. He was known in his neighborhood as the gentleman with polished shoes and a kind smile. But as the years passed, something quietly shifted. He began to plan his outings around bathroom locations. He declined long dinners, skipped movie nights, and avoided family road trips, all because of a new and unpredictable challenge, sudden urgency, and the fear of not making it in time. What Thomas faced is something many older adults experience, but few speak about: the fear of a leak, the dread of an accident, the embarrassment of needing the restroom more often and more urgently than before. As we age, the muscles that support bladder and bowel control can weaken. The bladder may become overactive or less able to hold fluid for long periods. Some medications increase frequency. Certain health conditions like diabetes or prostate issues can complicate things even more. And then there's the emotional toll, the constant anxiety, the fear of humiliation, and the silent isolation that follows. But here's the truth. Bathroom mishaps are common. They're not a reflection of who you are. They're a signal, a reminder that your body is evolving and asking for care in a new way. And there are solutions. Pelvic floor exercises, such as Kegels, can significantly strengthen the muscles involved in bladder control. These are discreet, can be done anywhere, and have helped countless seniors regain confidence. In addition, adjusting fluid intake, not cutting it off, but managing it wisely, can help. Limiting fluids 2 hours before bedtime and avoiding diuretics like caffeine or alcohol can reduce overnight urgency. Clothing choice also matters. Easy-to-remove garments can make all the difference in moments when seconds count. And for those who want an extra layer of assurance, today's incontinence products are discreet, comfortable, and far more advanced than they used to be. But perhaps most importantly, talk about it. With your doctor, with a trusted friend. You might be surprised to find just how many people share the same concern. When Thomas finally confided in his doctor, he discovered that a minor medication adjustment, plus a simple routine of daily pelvic exercises, made a world of difference. Within a few weeks, he was back at his weekly card games and even took a road trip with his grandchildren without fear. What he learned was this: needing help isn't shameful. Avoiding life because of fear, that's what truly robs us of our joy. Up next, a surprisingly loud issue that often goes unnoticed until it becomes impossible to ignore. It has to do with digestion. And yes, it includes bloating, gas, and those awkward sounds your body makes when you least expect it. Let's tackle it with honesty and a little bit of humor. Real but embarrassing thing before: digestion drama, bloating, gas, and stomach noises. Martha had always prided herself on being elegant at the dinner table. Napkin in place, posture straight, polite conversation flowing. But lately, those dinners had taken on a new challenge. Right in the middle of a quiet moment, her stomach would gurgle, loud and unapologetic. Or worse, an unexpected puff of gas would slip out, leaving her mortified. She began dreading meals, avoiding certain foods, even skipping invitations to dine with friends. Not because she didn't want to be there, but because she feared what her body might do next. Sound familiar? Digestive changes are one of the most common yet rarely discussed aspects of aging. Our digestive systems slow down. Enzymes that once easily broke down complex foods become less efficient. Gas builds up more easily. Our gut flora, the bacteria that help us digest, shifts, and with it, our tolerance to certain meals. The result? Bloating, rumbling, gas, and an orchestra of internal noises that seem to play at the worst possible times. But here's what you need to hear. These things are normal. They're human. And while they might make us blush, they don't define our grace, our presence, or our worth. Still, there are ways to minimize the digestive drama. First, keep a food journal. Often specific triggers like dairy, beans, cruciferous vegetables, or carbonated drinks can be identified and adjusted. You don't have to eliminate everything. Just learn what your body now prefers. Second, eat more slowly. Chewing thoroughly and taking your time allows your stomach to process food more gently and reduces the amount of air you swallow, one of the main causes of gas. Third, introduce probiotics. These beneficial bacteria can support digestion and reduce bloating. Yogurt, kefir, or supplements, as advised by a doctor, can help balance your gut. Finally, move your body. Gentle walks after meals, light stretching, or yoga can stimulate digestion and help release trapped gas in more comfortable and private ways. Martha eventually learned to smile through the awkward moments. She even joked about it once at a family brunch. "If you hear the tuba section warming up, it's just me." Her laughter, genuine and lighthearted, changed everything. The tension disappeared, the room relaxed, and for the first time in months, she truly enjoyed her meal. So the next time your body makes an unexpected noise, remember, it's not misbehaving, it's adapting. Up next, a shift that touches something far more intimate. Not digestive, but deeply emotional and deeply human. When your body's rhythms change and your desires shift, how do you navigate love, intimacy, and connection in this new season of life? Let's talk about it with compassion and honesty. Real but embarrassing thing number 5, sexual changes, desire, performance, and awkward conversations. For most of her adult life, Eleanor had a quiet but meaningful connection with her husband, Walter. They shared small touches, knowing glances, and an unspoken rhythm of intimacy that made their bond feel strong. But in recent years, something shifted. It wasn't just about physical changes, it was emotional too. The spark they once felt had faded, and neither of them knew how to talk about it. Walter, once confident and affectionate, had grown hesitant. Eleanor, once playful and curious, now felt unsure and disconnected. They still loved each other deeply, but there was a distance between them that hadn't been there before. And because neither wanted to embarrass the other, they simply stopped talking about it. Sexual changes in older adulthood are common, and yet they remain one of the most private and unspoken sources of discomfort for many seniors. Desire can fluctuate. Physical responses may change. For some, intimacy becomes more emotional than physical. For others, physical challenges, like dryness, erectile difficulties, or discomfort, can feel like barriers to closeness. And with those changes comes a quiet shame. But here's the truth: there is nothing shameful about evolving intimacy. Our bodies age, our hormones shift. Life experiences, grief, illness, medications can all affect the way we express love and desire. But that doesn't mean love disappears, nor does connection. In fact, this season of life can bring about the most profound, emotionally rich intimacy you've ever known if you allow yourself to redefine it. First, start with honesty. Have a gentle conversation with your partner. It doesn't have to be dramatic, just open. You might say, "I've noticed some changes, and I wonder if you have too. Maybe we can figure it out together." Second, release expectations tied to youth. Intimacy after 60 or 70 is not supposed to look like it did at 30. And that's a good thing. It can be slower, more thoughtful, and deeply fulfilling in ways that youth can't always offer. Third, seek support if needed. There are wonderful doctors, therapists, and even books that help older adults explore sexual wellness with dignity and clarity. For women, lubricants, hormone therapy, or gentle stretching exercises can make a world of difference. For men, medications, counseling, or physical therapy can restore confidence. Eleanor and Walter eventually did have that conversation. It started with tears, followed by laughter, and then relief. They realized they had both been afraid of hurting each other's feelings. But through talking, they found new ways to express love, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional, but always meaningful. What they rediscovered wasn't just intimacy, it was trust. Aging doesn't take away your capacity for desire. It simply asks you to explore it differently. Up next, a change that's far less private and often far more visible. When the words come too quickly or the stories go on a bit too long, you might be doing something you don't even realize, dominating conversations. Let's talk about what it means to overtalk or repeat yourself and how to reconnect through real listening. Real but embarrassing thing number 6, overtalking and repeating stories. Sarah had always been known as the storyteller of her family. Her grandkids loved her tales about the old days, how she met their grandfather, how she marched for women's rights, how she baked 10 pies in one afternoon during a holiday storm. But lately, she noticed something strange. The room would grow quiet when she started speaking. Her children would exchange glances, her grandson would check his phone, and her granddaughter, once so attentive, would say gently, "Grandma, you've told us this one before." Sarah felt a sting, not of anger, but of confusion. Had she become someone who didn't know when to stop talking? Was she repeating herself without realizing it? The truth is, overtalking or repeating stories is more common than we think, and it's not about being self-centered. Often, it stems from excitement, habit, or even a deep desire to feel seen and heard in a world that moves too fast. As we age, our social circles may shrink. We may spend more time alone. So when we do get a chance to connect, we want to share. We want to matter. And in doing so, we may not notice that we're dominating the conversation or revisiting the same tales over and over. This doesn't make you annoying. It makes you human. But it also presents an opportunity to deepen relationships through balance. The key, awareness and curiosity. First, try noticing your own patterns. After speaking for a few minutes, pause and ask, "What do you think?" Or, "Has anything interesting happened to you this week?" That small gesture shifts the focus and invites others into the conversation. Second, write down your favorite stories. Not to censor yourself, but to honor them. Sometimes, giving them a place to live outside your memory can ease the pressure to keep telling them aloud. Third, practice active listening. When someone else is speaking, resist the urge to immediately add your experience. Instead, ask a follow-up question. Show them you're not just waiting your turn, you're present. Sarah took these steps to heart. At her next family dinner, she asked her grandson about his music, then just listened. No interruptions, no segues into her past, just listening. To her surprise, he opened up more than he had in months. They laughed, they shared, and when he finally asked her to tell one of her famous stories, this time it felt like a gift, not a habit. In the end, it's not about speaking less, it's about connecting more, and connection starts with giving others room to share too. Up next, a change that's not about what you say, but what your face says when you're not speaking. We're diving into subtle shifts in facial expressions, blank stares, unintentional frowns, and how they might be sending messages you don't even realize. Real but embarrassing thing 7, facial expressions you can't control. Frowns, blank stares, and the messages you never meant to send. Margaret had always prided herself on being warm and welcoming. In her younger years, friends described her as someone who could light up a room with just a smile. But recently, she noticed something strange. People would ask her, "Are you okay?" even when she felt fine. Strangers looked nervous when making eye contact. Her grandson even asked once, "Grandma, are you mad at me?" She was confused until she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror one afternoon. Her face, resting in stillness, wore a look she didn't recognize. Her brows were slightly furrowed, lips pressed in a firm line. To others, it may have looked like irritation or sadness, but to Margaret, It was just her normal resting expression. As we age, our facial muscles lose tone and elasticity. Gravity tugs at the corners of our mouths. Eyelids may droop. Our faces, when at rest, can unintentionally convey emotions we aren't feeling, like anger, fatigue, or judgment. This phenomenon, sometimes called resting stern face, is more common than most realize. The challenge? People react to what they see, and without knowing it, your expressions might be pushing others away, or giving the impression that you're upset, uninterested, or closed off. It's frustrating, because inside, you might feel completely content, but outside, the message is getting lost. So what can be done? First, become aware, not self-critical, just observant. Take a moment to look in the mirror when your face is relaxed. What does it say? Does it match how you feel inside? Second, try small exercises to reawaken facial muscles. Gentle face yoga, stretching, or even practicing expressions, like smiling softly or raising your eyebrows, can help retrain your face to reflect more accurately what's inside. Third, make eye contact and pair it with warmth. A slight smile when someone approaches, even a quick nod, can counteract any unintended messages from your resting expression. And finally, talk about it. Margaret had a heartfelt conversation with her daughter, explaining how her face may appear more serious lately, even when she's feeling happy. That small admission changed everything. People stopped assuming and started understanding. It wasn't about pretending, it was about clarity. And Margaret, once again, found herself connecting with others because they could finally see the joy she had always carried within. Up next, another change that's hard to ignore, one that shows up in the mirror, in photos, or when you lean in for a hug. It's about hair, where it's showing up unexpectedly, where it's disappearing, and how to navigate these shifts without losing your sense of self. Real but embarrassing thing number 8, unwanted hair or hair loss in embarrassing places. When Helen first noticed a wiry hair sprouting from her chin, she thought it was just a fluke. She plucked it, forgot about it, and moved on. But soon, more began to appear. At the same time, her once thick hairline was beginning to thin, her eyebrows faded, and her arms, once smooth, now had a light layer of fuzz that hadn't been there before. It felt like a cruel joke. Hair was showing up in all the wrong places and disappearing from all the right ones. She began avoiding close conversations, stopped wearing sleeveless blouses, and spent way too much time in front of the mirror, searching for stray hairs she might have missed. But the hardest part wasn't the hair itself, it was what it did to her confidence. This is one of aging's more frustrating tricks, and it affects men and women alike. Hormonal changes, especially a drop in estrogen for women and testosterone shifts for men, cause hair follicles to react in unpredictable ways. The result? Facial hair growth in women, thinning scalp hair in men, patchy eyebrows, sparse lashes, and even body hair where it was once minimal. And because it's visible, it feels personal. But here's what matters. This is normal. Embarrassing, maybe, but also common. And it doesn't mean you're not beautiful. It just means your body is adapting, as it always has. There are gentle, effective ways to address it. First, avoid harsh chemical treatments or overplucking. These can damage the skin or worsen thinning. Instead, use small grooming tools, precision trimmers, facial razors, or gentle waxes designed for mature skin. Many drugstores now carry discreet and easy-to-use options. Second, consider visiting a dermatologist. They can recommend safe treatments, supplements, or topical products that promote healthy scalp and brow growth or slow unwanted hair growth on the face. Third, rethink your definition of grooming. It's not about perfection, it's about comfort and confidence. If wearing a wide-brimmed hat or styling your hair differently gives you a boost, do it. If letting a few stray hairs be doesn't bother you, more power to you. Your choice is what matters most. Helen eventually decided to keep a small mirror in her purse, not as a sign of obsession, but of self-care. A quick glance now and then gave her peace of mind, and she also gave herself grace. When her granddaughter playfully tugged a chin hair one afternoon and giggled, Helen laughed too. "That's my wisdom antenna," she said, and just like that, the shame dissolved. Up next, we're shifting from what you see in the mirror to what happens when memory slips, especially in public. Forgetting a name, losing a word mid-sentence, or drawing a blank in front of family. It happens, and it's not the end of your sharpness. Let's talk about it next. Real but embarrassing thing number 9. Memory lapses in public. Forgetting names, losing words, and drawing blanks. Frank was the kind of man who always remembered birthdays. He could rattle off the capitals of every U.S. state and never missed a punchline. But one Sunday afternoon, during his granddaughter's birthday party, he reached out to introduce her to an old friend and completely blanked on her name. His mind froze. He stumbled. "This is my sunshine," he said, hoping a pet name would cover the moment. But the warmth drained from his face. It had happened before, and it was happening more often. Memory lapses, especially in public, can feel like a punch to the gut. Forgetting a familiar name, losing your train of thought mid-sentence, or standing in front of someone and realizing you can't recall why you're there. It's jarring, disorienting, and yes, embarrassing. And in a world that praises mental sharpness, even the smallest slip can feel like a spotlight shining on your age. But let's take a step back. Mild memory lapses are a normal part of aging. The brain, like every part of the body, changes over time. Processing speed may slow, word retrieval might take longer. Distractions become harder to ignore. But none of this means you've lost your intelligence or your dignity. Here's the truth. Occasional forgetfulness is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of a life filled with information, stories, emotions, and decades of living. So what can you do? First, create mental space. Instead of multitasking, try focusing on one thing at a time. Slow down conversations. Give your brain the chance to catch up. Second, use memory tools. Repeat names aloud. Make associations. Her name's Lily, like the flower. Visual cues and word links are powerful tricks that work at any age. Third, take care of your brain like you would your body. Movement, hydration, sleep, and brain-engaging activities like puzzles, reading, or learning something new help maintain mental agility. And finally, respond with grace. When Frank forgot his granddaughter's name, he later pulled her aside and said, "Sweetheart, Grandpa's brain skipped a beat today, but my heart never forgets you." She smiled, hugged him tight, and whispered, "That's okay, I forget stuff too." Sometimes it's not the forgetting that matters, it's how we respond to ourselves and to others. Up next, not what you say or forget to say, but how you sound when you say it. Shaky voices, raspy tones, or weak projection can make you feel invisible. Let's talk about voice changes and how to reclaim your power, one word at a time. Real but embarrassing thing number 10, voice changes, shaky, weak, or raspy speech. Daniel was always a commanding speaker. Whether leading meetings at work or telling bedtime stories to his grandkids, his voice had weight. But lately, something had changed. His words came out thinner, sometimes raspy, sometimes so soft that people asked him to repeat himself. At a recent family gathering, he told a joke, one of his favorites, but no one laughed, not because it wasn't funny, but because they hadn't heard him. That night, Daniel sat in silence, wondering, when did I start fading out? Voice changes are a lesser-known but deeply personal part of aging. As we grow older, the muscles that support the vocal cords weaken. The cords themselves may become thinner and less flexible. The result? A voice that's quieter, shakier, or more breathy than before. And because our voice is so central to how we express ourselves, any shift can feel like a loss of identity. But here's the good news. Your voice isn't gone. It's just evolving, and with a little awareness and effort, you can strengthen it again. Start by staying hydrated. Dehydration is one of the most common causes of vocal strain. Sip water throughout the day and avoid caffeine or alcohol in excess, as they dry the throat. Next, warm up your voice. Just like stretching before a walk, your voice benefits from gentle exercises. Try humming for a few minutes in the morning. Repeat simple phrases slowly and clearly. Practice deep breathing to support your vocal cords with steady airflow. Third, don't whisper. It might seem helpful when your voice is weak, but whispering can actually strain the vocal cords even more. Instead, speak slowly and with intention, using your breath as support. And finally, consider seeing a speech therapist if your voice issues are persistent. They can help you build vocal strength and develop techniques to project your voice with confidence. Daniel eventually started attending a community choir, not because he was a great singer, but because he missed using his voice fully. The group gave him structure, encouragement, and exercises that brought back clarity and strength. More importantly, it reminded him that his voice still mattered. The truth is, you don't have to be loud to be heard. but you do deserve to feel like your voice carries weight, because it does. Up next, a subtle emotional habit that sneaks in when we try to do everything ourselves. It's about pride, independence, and the quiet shame of needing help. Let's talk about the fear of asking and what happens when you finally do. Real but embarrassing thing number 11, shame around needing help. The silent struggle with asking. Ruth had always been proud of her independence. She fixed her own appliances, did her own shopping, and never once asked for help bringing groceries up the stairs. But one morning, carrying a heavy bag in each hand, she stumbled. The bag spilled. Her knee throbbed. A young man nearby rushed over. "Let me help you," he offered. Ruth's instinct, a polite but firm, "No thank you, I've got it." But she didn't, and she knew it. Later that night, she replayed the moment in her mind, over and over. Why had it been so hard to say yes? Why did she feel embarrassed, not just by the stumble, but by the idea that someone saw her struggle? This is one of aging's most tender truths, the quiet shame around needing help. Our culture prizes independence. We're taught that strength means doing things on our own, but aging gently shifts the equation. Tasks that were once effortless now require more time, more care, or another pair of hands. Yet many seniors like Ruth resist asking or even accepting help, and not because they're ungrateful, because they fear becoming a burden, because they worry it signals weakness, because their identity is wrapped in capability, and asking for help feels like letting go of who they were. But here's the real truth. Asking for help is not weakness. It's courage, it's connection, it's an invitation for others to show love and for you to receive it. So how do we soften the shame? First, reframe the story. Helping isn't about pity, it's about partnership. Think of the times you helped someone. Did it make you feel burdened or useful, even joyful? Give others that same chance. Second, start small. Let someone open the door, carry a bag, offer you an arm. Each time you say yes, you build trust in others and in yourself. Third, practice gratitude over guilt. Instead of saying, "Sorry, I need help," try "Thank you for being here." It shifts the focus from shame to appreciation. Ruth eventually shared her struggle with her daughter, who simply said, "Mom, letting me help you makes me feel closer to you." That one sentence changed everything. The next time someone offered a hand, Ruth smiled and accepted. And what she found wasn't loss, but relief, lightness, even joy. Because it meant she didn't have to carry everything, literally or emotionally, alone. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone walk beside you. Up next, a shift that may surprise you. It's not about pain or weakness, but about holding back from pleasure, from fun, from living. We'll talk about frugality gone too far, and how being too careful with your money might be costing you something far more valuable. Real but embarrassing thing number 12, being too frugal to enjoy life, when saving becomes self-denial. Eleanor had always been smart with money. She clipped coupons, skipped indulgences, and put every spare dollar into savings. After all, that's how she and her late husband built a comfortable life. But years after his passing, Eleanor still lived as if every dollar might be her last. She refused dinner invitations because eating out felt too extravagant. She hesitated to buy new shoes, even when her old ones wore thin. She hadn't taken a vacation in over a decade, not because she didn't want to, but because the idea of spending money made her chest tighten with guilt. One afternoon, her friend invited her on a weekend trip to the countryside. Eleanor smiled politely, declined as usual, and then sat by the window wondering, what am I saving for if I'm not really living? This kind of frugality, rooted in caution and reinforced by fear, is more common than you might think. And while being financially responsible is a virtue, it can quietly become a barrier to joy. Especially in later life, when time becomes even more precious. You've worked hard, you've planned well, but if saving becomes your default mode and spending, even on things that nourish your soul, feels shameful, it may be time to ask, what are you denying yourself, and why? The truth is, money is a tool, not a cage. It's meant to support the life you want, not just shield you from the one you fear. So how do you shift from scarcity to balance? First, start small. Choose one thing this week to spend on, not out of impulse, but intention. A nice meal, a cozy sweater, a visit to a local museum, something that brings you joy without guilt. Second, create a fun fund. Literally set aside money every month for enjoyment, without touching your emergency or essentials. Knowing that money is already allocated for pleasure makes spending feel like self-care, not irresponsibility. Third, remind yourself that investing in experiences, memories with loved ones, moments of beauty, laughter, and exploration are not expenses. They are the dividends of a life well lived. When Eleanor finally said yes to that countryside trip, something shifted. She walked among wildflowers, ate delicious food she didn't cook herself, and laughed around a bonfire under the stars. She came home with a sun-kissed smile and a heart fuller than she ever expected. She realized that spending didn't mean losing. It meant choosing joy, choosing now. And sometimes the most generous thing you can do for yourself and for those who love you is to live. Up next, one final reflection that ties everything together. From unwanted hair to quiet memory slips, from shifting voices to stubborn independence, it's time to rediscover the joy that lives underneath it all. Let's close this journey with a powerful truth. Laughter, connection, and self-compassion are the greatest gifts of all. So here we are. We've walked together through 12 of the most real, raw, and often unspoken changes that come with growing older. We've talked about the noises our bodies make, the odors we didn't expect, the urgency that sends us rushing to the bathroom, the shifts in intimacy, in memory, in confidence, and in voice. And if you've made it this far, take a breath, because what you've just done is powerful. You've faced what most people try to hide. You've listened with curiosity and compassion. And maybe, somewhere in the middle of all this, you recognized yourself or someone you love. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. The truth is, aging is not a series of losses, it's a series of invitations. Invitations to adapt, to soften, to laugh at what once made us cringe, to ask for help when we need it. To share our stories, not because we forgot we told them, but because they still matter. Yes, some parts are messy, some are frustrating, some are even, admittedly, embarrassing. But each of them is also deeply human. You are not alone, and you are not failing. You are evolving. So let this be your reminder. If your knees pop when you stand, it means you've stood for something. If you repeat a story, it's because it still matters to you. If your voice shakes, it's because there's still emotion behind your words. And if you need help, you're not a burden. You're a bridge to someone else's kindness. Life doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be present, to be willing, to be real. So laugh when the moment invites it. Cry if something touches your heart. And above all, keep living fully, not in spite of the changes, but alongside them. If this video meant something to you, let us know in the comments. Share which part spoke to you most, or share it with someone who might need the reminder that they're not alone on this journey. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay connected with us, because here we talk about the things that matter, even the ones no one tells you. You're not just aging, you're unfolding, and every chapter is worth reading. Until next time, be kind to yourself and keep going.